These 17 hidden car parts that fail quietly could turn your car into a financial nightmare. Drivers lose over $400 billion annually to surprise repairs, many caused by components most people don't even know exist. They wear down silently, giving no warning until the repair bill hits thousands. Stay tuned, because one part fails far more often than anyone realizes, and chances are it's already in your car. Number 17, timing chain tensioner. It keeps the timing chain tight and in sync. Without it, your pistons and valves fall out of rhythm. When that happens, they collide. The result? Catastrophic engine failure. The danger is silence. This part rarely makes noise before disaster. No warning lights, no sudden shakes. It simply weakens, and one day, the chain slips. By the time you notice, your engine may already be ruined. So, how often should you check it? Every 60,000 to 100,000 miles is a safe rule of thumb. If your car idles roughly, rattles at startup, or has high mileage, don't ignore it. These are early red flags. Old oil, poor maintenance, stop-and-go driving, and extreme heat make it fail faster. Sludge builds up, the tensioner loses pressure. Suddenly, the chain goes slack. Prevent this with fresh oil changes, consistent checkups, and listening closely for faint rattling. Here's the scary part. Replacing a tensioner costs only $300, $500. Ignoring it can destroy your engine, leading to a rebuild of $4,000, $7,000, sometimes more. Spending a few hundred now saves a full overhaul later. It's small, it's hidden, but when it fails quietly, it takes your entire engine down with it. When silence can destroy an engine, what about the part that looks harmless, almost like a child's toy, yet strangles your car from the inside out? Number 16, the PCV valve. Its job is simple: release built-up gases so your oil stays clean and your seals stay intact. But once it clogs, everything turns ugly. Sludge thickens, seals start leaking, and in turbocharged cars, the turbo can suffocate to death. You won't notice it early. The engine keeps running, just dirtier, until one day you're staring at blue smoke from the exhaust, or wondering why oil is vanishing faster than ever. By then, pressure has been building for months, forcing oil past every weak spot. Do not fret. You can stay ahead of it. Check or replace it every 30,000, 50,000 miles. Turbo owners, lean towards sooner. Heat and boost burn these out quicker. Cleaning might buy you time if it's lightly gummed, but replacement is dirt cheap. A fresh one costs only $20, $60, but ignore it, and the bill can skyrocket to $1,000, $3,000 in repairs. Blown turbos, leaking seals, even a clogged catalytic converter. Leave it too long, and the damage doesn't stop there. The entire engine could be toast. Gas isn't the only thing vanishing. The next one hides in plain sight, quietly trapping something far more dangerous. Number 15. The Evap canister. Buried beneath your car, there's a box filled with charcoal. That little box is the reason your fuel tank doesn't constantly breathe toxic vapors into the air. It works quietly, day after day, capturing fumes you'll never see or smell. The catch? You'll never notice when it starts dying. A stone from the road, a crack from winter salt, or just years of fuel vapor soaking in. Any of these can silently cripple it. The first sign you get isn't noise, smoke, or leaks. It's a glowing check engine light that refuses to leave. That light can trigger chaos. Failed emissions tests, hours of diagnostics, mechanics swapping sensors, hoses, and valves, chasing a ghost. All the while, the true villain is a cracked charcoal canister hiding under the chassis. And the cost? Replacement runs $200, $600 depending on the car. Not terrible until you ignore it. Then you're wasting fuel, killing efficiency, and risking damage to the entire evaporative system. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but this unassuming black box can quietly drain your wallet while you argue with a glowing dashboard. Buried deep and spinning without thanks, the next silent culprit turns faint whispers into howls before it rips everything apart. Number 14. Differential bearings. Tucked deep inside your car's differential are small bearings that almost never get a second thought. Their job? Keep the gears turning smoothly so power transfers from the engine to your wheels without resistance. When they're healthy, you hear nothing. When they start to fail, the nightmare begins. It usually starts as a faint whine at highway speeds. Drivers often mistake it for tire noise. Over time, that whine grows into a howl, then a grinding roar. By then, the bearings have worn enough to let gears chew into each other. Once metal shavings circulate in the fluid, the clock is ticking toward catastrophic failure. These bearings don't quit suddenly. They deteriorate over thousands of miles, quietly destroying your differential from within. If ignored, the gears can seize and take the entire axle down with them. Rebuilding or replacing a whole differential often costs $2,500 or more. Prevention is simple. Fresh differential fluid every 30,000, 60,000 miles. Check sooner if you tow, drive hard, or use all-wheel drive. Fluid changes are cheap insurance, usually under $150. Number 13, heater core. It usually begins on a cold morning. You fire up the heat, but instead of comfort, the windshield clouds with fog you can't wipe away. A sweet, syrupy smell hangs in the air. You crack the window, thinking it's nothing, but inside the dash, coolant is already leaking. This leak isn't dramatic. No puddles under the car, no flashing lights on the dash, just a slow bleed of coolant into the cabin, one drop at a time. By the time you realize what's happening, the damage is no longer minor. The cruel part? The heater core itself is cheap, barely a couple $100, but it hides behind a fortress of plastic, wiring, and the entire dashboard. To replace it, everything has to be torn apart. Labor alone can push the repair north of $1,000, $1,500. Ignore it, and the stakes climb higher. Low coolant leads to overheating. Overheating warps the head gasket. Suddenly, a $100 part snowballs into an engine-killing disaster. So when the cabin smells sweet or your windows fog mysteriously, don't shrug it off. That's not just the weather, it's the whisper of a time bomb ticking behind your dashboard. Still with me? Good. Now let's talk about the tiny electric gatekeepers that decide when your gears shift or when they refuse to. Number 12. Transmission solenoids. Inside your transmission are tiny electronic valves, each smaller than your finger. Their job is to direct high-pressure fluid so the gears know exactly when to shift. They are like traffic lights for transmission fluid, green for smooth shifts, red for disaster. But when one sticks, order turns to chaos. Suddenly, the wrong gear engages. You feel jerks, slipping, or a harsh delay that makes every drive unpredictable. Sometimes the car drops into limp mode, leaving you crawling on the road. All this because one microscopic valve decided to misbehave. Why do they fail? Heat cooks them. Old, dirty fluid gums them up. Even normal wear can make them stick. You won't always see it coming. Shifts may feel perfect one moment, then slam the next. Now for the money side. A single solenoid replacement might cost just a few $100s, but if ignored, bad fluid pressure wrecks the entire transmission. At that point, you're paying $2,000, $4,000 for a rebuild or full replacement. Valves may stick, but hidden magic inside this fragile honeycomb can quietly choke your entire engine into submission. Number 11. The catalytic converter honeycomb. Everyone knows the shiny metal can bolt it under the car. That's the catalytic converter. But the real magic and danger lives inside it. A fragile ceramic honeycomb coated in precious metals filters toxic exhaust into something cleaner. Without it, your car would choke the air with poison. The problem? That honeycomb is delicate. Overheating, bad fuel, or even a single misfire can crack or melt it. You don't hear a bang. You don't see smoke. Instead, your car slowly suffocates. Exhaust flow clogs, the engine strains, and your fuel economy plummets. Some drivers think it's just old age or dirty spark plugs, but the truth is buried in that crumbling ceramic core. And once the honeycomb collapses, there's no fixing it. Broken pieces rattle around, blocking exhaust and cooking everything downstream. Ignore it long enough, and the engine can overheat, valves can burn, and your car turns into a sluggish money pit. Replacement? Brutal. A new catalytic converter costs $1,500, $3,000, and sometimes more on modern cars stuffed with sensors. All that damage from something you never even see. Number 10. Active Active motor mounts. Engines are violent machines. Without something to tame them, every drive would feel like sitting on a jackhammer. That's where active motor mounts step in. Unlike old rubber blocks, these modern mounts are filled with fluid and even talk to the car's computer. They adjust stiffness, cancel vibration, and make a rough engine feel silky smooth. But here's the catch. They don't scream when they fail. No explosion, no leak you'll spot instantly. Instead, vibrations creep in slowly. The steering wheel buzzes. The cabin feels harsher. You think it's just old age. Meanwhile, the ECU is quietly compensating, injecting more fuel, tweaking idle speed, masking the problem while adding stress everywhere else. Left unchecked, a failed mount does more than shake your hands. It rattles the drivetrain, stresses axles, and hammers sensitive electronics. The constant movement also cracks hoses and wiring that were never meant to flex. What began as a silent cushion turns into a ripple of damage across the engine bay. Finding and fixing them is no small task. These mounts are often buried deep, hidden under layers of metal and plastic. Replacement runs $500, $1,000, and $200 depending on the car. Should you ignore them, and that little vibration becomes a slow-motion wrecking ball inside your engine bay. 9. The clock spring. Every time you turn the wheel, something unusual is happening inside your steering column. A flat ribbon cable, wound like a spiral, twists and unravels with every rotation. This is the clock spring. It's the hidden bridge that keeps your horn, radio buttons, and most importantly, your airbag, connected while the wheel spins freely. When it begins to fail, the symptoms are almost playful. A horn that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Steering wheel buttons flickering in and out. Maybe a faint clicking sound as you steer. Annoying? Sure. Dangerous? Absolutely, because the same cable that powers your horn also controls your driver's airbag. A failed spring can mean the airbag never deploys in a crash. Drivers often ignore the early quirks, blaming bad fuses or worn switches, but the clock spring quietly unravels until one day the airbag light glows on the dash. By then, it's a full-blown safety hazard. Correcting it is pain. $500 to $1,200, depending on how tightly integrated it is with other steering electronics. Still, that's pocket change compared to the price of an airbag that doesn't fire when you need it most. A ribbon of wires unravels trust. Then, buried in your tank, comes the liar, telling you there's fuel when you're already stranded. Number 8. Fuel sending unit. Your fuel gauge says half a tank. You relax, keep driving, and then your engine coughs, sputters, and dies in the middle of nowhere. No, you didn't miscalculate. Your gauge just betrayed you. The traitor is buried inside your gas tank, a small float and sensor called the fuel sending unit. It quietly tracks fuel levels and reports back to the gauge. At least, that's what it's supposed to do. Over time, corrosion creeps across the contacts. The float arm sticks. The signals get scrambled, and your gauge goes from accurate to optimistic liar. One minute it says you've got plenty left. The next, you're stranded on empty. To reach it, the entire fuel tank usually has to be lowered. Dirty, awkward work that turns a small part into a $600, $1,000 repair. Ignore the problem, and it gets worse. Running lower than you think can burn out your fuel pump too. Another wallet-draining repair. Number 7. Body control module. Imagine your car acting on its own. Locks clatter open and shut. Headlights flicker in the driveway. The alarm screams at 3 a.m. It feels haunted, but the culprit isn't supernatural. It's the body control module shorting out. This hidden box lives behind the dashboard, pulling strings you never see. It manages the civilized side of your car. Windows, wipers, lights, alarms, even the keyless entry. If the BCM glitches, the car doesn't break down. It misbehaves. Doors refuse to lock. The interior light drains your battery overnight. The horn honks whenever it pleases. And here's the important distinction. Don't confuse it with the ECU. The ECU is the engine's brain. It keeps the car running. The BCM is the comfort brain. It keeps the car behaving. When it fails, the engine still works, but the rest of the car turns into a circus. Changing this box isn't just swapping parts. It needs programming to your car, like coding a new brain. That's why repairs easily soar past 1,000. Number 6. Transfer case chain. On a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicle, the transfer case chain is the unsung hero that keeps your front and rear wheels moving in perfect synchronization. It hides deep inside the transfer case, quietly working mile after mile, never asking for attention. Shockingly, chains don't snap instantly. They stretch, slowly, silently, mile after mile. Then one day, you hear a faint clunk when shifting into 4-watt-D. If you assume it, that harmless clunk turns into grinding, slipping, and finally, metal shrapnel exploding inside your transfer case. When that happens, you don't just lose traction, you lose the entire drivetrain. Once the chain fails, you're looking at a towing bill, a complete drivetrain teardown, and repair costs that can easily climb into the thousands. We're talking $2,000, $4,000 for a replacement transfer case, sometimes more. What weakens it? Heavy towing, oversized tires, constant stop and go, or just age. Off-roaders and snow warriors abuse it most without realizing. Most drivers never service their transfer case fluid at the recommended 30,000, 60,000 miles. That dirty oil is what accelerates chain stretch. Number 5. Sunroof drain tubes. You love the open glass roof, the sunlight pouring in, and the feeling of space. But above your head, hidden in the frame, tiny rubber tubes are working overtime to keep you dry. Their job is simple: channel rainwater safely out of the cabin. And they usually do it perfectly until they don't. These drains clog silently with dust, pollen, or a single stubborn leaf. You won't know it's happening until the next storm hits. Suddenly, water has nowhere to go but inside. It seeps into the headliner, drips down the pillars, and hunts for the most expensive targets: wiring harnesses, airbags, and electronic control modules tucked above the ceiling. What looks like a harmless damp spot can quickly snowball into thousands in electrical repairs, ruined upholstery, and even mold remediation. Some drivers only discover the issue when their dome lights flicker, their sunroof controls die, or worse, the car smells like a swamp. Prevention is simple. Clean those drains at least once a year, or more often if you park under trees. A 10-minute DIY flush with compressed air can save you from a $5,000 or $1,000 repair bill. It's not the sunroof glass that betrays you, it's the hidden drains meant to protect you. Number 4. ABS pump or module. Every driver trusts their brakes. You press the pedal, and the car should stop. But hidden beneath that confidence is a silent guardian, the ABS pump. This pump is the muscle behind the system, pushing hydraulic pressure with lightning speed whenever the wheels start to lock. What makes it terrifying? It quits silently. No noise, no hint, just moisture creeping into seals or corrosion eating away inside the housing. Then, one day, the light on your dash glows, and your safety net disappears. Without the pump, your brakes still work, but the anti-lock system is gone. In an emergency stop on wet roads, that difference can mean control or catastrophe. Drivers often blame sensors for ABS problems, but the pump itself is far more costly. Replacing it isn't just a swap. It usually means coding a new module to your car's brain. That's why bills run from $1,500 to $2,500, sometimes more on luxury models. If you want to avoid it, flush brake fluid every 2 to 3 years. Old, moisture-filled fluid is the pump's worst enemy. Ignore it, and corrosion does its quiet work until one day, the part that saves your life simply won't. Number 3. CV joints and axles. Your wheels don't spin on magic. They spin because CV joints and axles transfer every ounce of engine power straight to the ground. These parts work constantly through turns, bumps, potholes, and long highway stretches. The problem? They wear out in silence. You will never see warning lights, just a faint clicking when you turn, or a subtle shimmy that feels like unbalanced tires. Very easy to ignore, but dangerous to miss. Unlike brakes or tires, CV joints aren't monitored by sensors. That means when things go bad, they go bad fast. A joint that's already cracked or leaking grease can seize without notice, and if it fails completely while driving, the axle can snap, instantly cutting power to the wheels. Best case, you're stuck at the side of the road. Worst case, you lose control mid-turn with traffic around you. Replacing a worn joint early will cost a few hundred. Wait too long, and you're looking at towing, axle replacement, and possibly transmission damage, well over $1,000. The clicking sound isn't just annoying, it's your last warning before the driveline gives up. Number 2. Active suspension dampers. Luxury cars float smoothly over bumps for a reason. Hidden inside each corner are dampers controlled by computers, constantly adjusting in milliseconds. Hit a pothole? They stiffen. Cruise a highway? They soften. It feels like magic. What you don't know is that these dampers don't explode dramatically. They fade in silence. At first, the car still feels normal because the computer works overtime, compensating for the weak damper. But that compensation comes at a cost. Uneven tire wear, extra strain on bushings, and a ride quality that slowly slips downhill. Once the computer runs out of tricks, the truth shows itself. Harsh thuds over bumps, floating in corners, or a car that feels unstable at speed. By then, replacement is no small favor. Adaptive dampers can run $1,200 to $2,000 each, and most cars have 4. That's not a repair, that's a bank account ambush. Good news, you can control it. Conduct regular suspension checks and pay attention to ride changes. If the car suddenly feels different, don't ignore it. What seems like just aging could be a hidden damper on its last breath, dragging the whole suspension system down with it. And now, the grand finale. This is the most maddening of all. Number 1, wiring harness connectors. Few things make a car feel more possessed than failing wiring harness connectors. These little plastic clips sit deep inside the car, holding critical wires together. Out of sight, forgotten for years, until one cracks with age. That's when the real trouble begins. Suddenly, your car stalls without reason. The starter cranks but refuses to fire. Or worse, a dashboard full of warning lights tells you 10 different systems failed at once. You chase the issue, swapping sensors, relays, maybe even modules. Yet the ghost remains. A brittle connector is barely hanging on. One broken clip and the circuit opens just enough to create chaos. The ECU thinks the throttle's dead, or the ABS lost contact, or the engine has no spark. You're left guessing. Diagnosing it is brutal. Hours, sometimes days, of labor to trace a single intermittent fault. Mechanics hate it. You'll hate it even more, especially when the bill hits 4 figures, all because of one cracked clip that costs a few dollars new. Cars rarely die loudly. Most fail in whispers. These hidden parts prove it. Quiet breakdowns that snowball into 4-figure bills. Staying alert is your only defense. But we're curious, which of these silent troublemakers have you battled yourself? Share your experience in the comments. We might just save another driver's wallet.